In this global society, we virtually connect to exchange ideas and instigate change. But now, tomorrow's leaders come face to face today to confront world concerns with discourse and dialogue, debating across borders. New Orleans, the international city on one of the world's great rivers, the Mississippi, where 8 students from nations across the globe convened to debate international concerns, each student a winner in a competition sponsored by the Open Society Foundations. Day 1 of their journey takes them to the Loyola University campus on historic St. Charles Avenue in uptown New Orleans, site of the upcoming debate.
Hi, my name is Kara and welcome to Loyola University, New Orleans. This is where we'll be doing our preparation for the final debate in a few days, so let's walk inside.
Princeton student Kara Ekholm, an experienced debater, is the debate moderator.
Welcome, and I'm Sonia Dewey. I'm director of the School of Mass Communication, and I know you all are at colleges from across the world.
Hi, my name is Angela Gunn. I'm from Queens, New York. I currently go to school at Pomona College. It's in Claremont, California, which is about 40 minutes outside of LA. I haven't decided what I'm studying yet, but most likely economics and mathematics. I don't know, I've been involved in debate for about 4 years. I haven't been too active past year at college, but I'm hoping to be more involved next year.
I'm Carlos Felipe Parra Rojas. I'm a law student in the Universidad del Rosario in Colombia, in Bogota. I'm part of the Colombian Debate League, and I'm here for debate.
I'm Crystal. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I'm going to be a freshman at Stanford University in the fall. I guess it's sort of awkward for me because before I started, before I'm going to start at Stanford, I've already been in college for a year in Taiwan. I've been doing debate for, I would say, 6 years now, so ever since I was in middle school.
I'm Hande Öztürk. I'm coming from Turkey. I'm 21 years old. I go to university in Istanbul. I've been living in there for 7 years now, and I study law. I wanted to come this show because I'm interested in debate. I've been debating since high school.
Yeah, my name's Patrick Caldwell. I'm from the University of Sydney, Australia. I've just finished a law degree and I'm currently studying a postgraduate degree in German literature. I've been debating since high school. So first year of high school, they put us in debate teams and made us debate. And I was always a very argumentative kid, so it seemed like a natural fit.
My name is Pierre. I'm 23. I'm French. I go to a school called the École Polytechnique, right outside of Paris. I've been studying science, like physics and maths, for 4 years, and I graduated. Now I'm moving on to economics. I like to debate, and I like to defend different opinions, especially on burning issues.
My name's Sam Green. I originally come from Newfoundland in Canada, but I'm a second-year student at the University of Toronto in international relations. I started debating in the 8th grade. I think if you've been debating long enough, you realize that you're going to have a bunch of good and bad experiences when you do it, especially in competitions. People like to win.
My name is Jean. I'm from Slovenia, and I'm 20 years old. I got involved with debate when I started high school. The minute I started debating, I fell in love, and I just kept doing it, and the more I did it, the more fun I had, the more interesting people I've met, and I just have been doing it ever since.
So we're really excited to share with you all that Loyola has to offer while you're here in the city of New Orleans.
Hi guys, welcome to Loyola University, New Orleans. We were established in 1912.
After getting acquainted with each other, The debaters got to know the campus, where they'd spend the next few days preparing for the debate.
Hi, this is Brian Sullivan and Malia Willie, and they're librarians here at Loyola, and they're going to give you an introduction to the library and the databases and the information that you can access while you're here.
We're going to do our primarily everything in the library classroom, which is on the second floor.
A good debate, of course, requires evidence. So today we're going to go over finding resources where you can find evidence for your debate topic. So our goal for today is to learn about different databases for locating information on current events and to also practice searching for a topic on a current event.
So the debate planning begins. Soon the debaters will learn the debate topic and also their teammates. They've not much time. The debate is less than 3 days away and they have just met. So there's a lot to learn about each other and how they will work together. A taste of New Orleans helps as they wind up their first day, getting ready for the challenge ahead.
I think it's the first time I will debate with a team that I don't know before. Yeah, it's the first time. They're really good people. Some of them they're really professionals in debating. Some they are not like so much time debating, but they are really nice, everyone.
Oh, I like the other contestants. I just got here this morning, so I haven't, gotten to know them too well. But, everybody seems to be studying law, and everyone seems really serious about debate. So, I think they probably all know their stuff, and, it'll be pretty tough competition.
I think it's great that they're from all over the world. They seem very intelligent, and they seem to be fast thinkers, which is very useful in debating.
They know they have come to debate, but about what? Kara is going to reveal the topic and their teammates to them.
It's been great working with all of you over the past day, but now it's time to get to the topic and the teams. And now to announce the teams. Team 1, Angela, Patrick, Hande, Jean.
I think what you look for in a team is, first of all, just nice people to hang around. There's nothing worse than being stuck in a group that's tedious or where one person is just really annoying. Happily, the group here seems awesome. We've been together for, I think, 24 hours now. Some people have been here just a tiny bit longer, and everyone seems really happily and kind of chilled out, and no one's grinding or being weird.
I'm very happy that we have such a group of people because, well, first of all, they all seem nice, and I think we kind of are happy to be together, and I think that's important to get along well with all other people. I think we could also spend time together, and there would be much character differences between each other. I think we all have something in common, and I also think that they're really smart people, well-educated people, so they know what they're doing.
That means that Team 2 is Carlos, Pierre, Crystal, and Sam.
I think I'm most excited about working with the other debaters because I think a lot of them are real powerhouses on the international stage when it comes to debating, and so like the amount of experience that they have, the places that they've been, and just their debating prowess, I guess, is just really exciting to learn about and to just have fun with them.
I've been really excited to meet mostly the people that have come from around the world, the 7 other people, to debate. They're fantastic. So I've done debating competitions in a bunch of countries, and every time that I do it, I meet someone new. I meet new people from different backgrounds with different experiences, and every time come with rich, interesting stories.
Now that you know your teams, it's time to announce the topic. I will repeat the topic only twice. Be sure to pay attention to the exact wording. The topic is, ethnic profiling is a just means of combating terrorism. I repeat, ethnic profiling is a just means of combating terrorism. Now there will be a coin toss to determine which team defends what side of the motion. I will flip a coin in the air, and Team 1, you must call either heads or tails. If they win the coin toss, they'll get to choose which side of the motion they defend. Team 1, please designate someone to call heads or tails.
I think Patrick.
Patrick, you're calling?
Yes.
Is everyone ready?
Yes. Tails.
And it's tails. Team 1, you have 15 minutes to pick which side of the topic you're going to be defending.
Let's go maybe chat about it.
I like working in a team. I think you're exposed to ideas that you would normally be exposed to. You're exposed to people that you wouldn't normally interact with. I think we should be opposition, definitely.
Really? I was going to say
No, I think that's actually one of the major lessons that debate taught me. Not so much argumentation, not so much public speaking. That's all. Of course, it's helpful, but one of the main things it taught me is how to work with people. It's how to take criticism. It's how to criticize myself, how to criticize my arguments. So that's one of the main things.
Team 1, your time is up. Have you made a decision?
We're going to oppose the motion.
So Team 1 chose to oppose the motion. This means that Team 2 will be arguing in favor of ethnic profiling as a just means of combating terrorism. Each team must give 3 7-minute speeches followed by a 5-minute speech. You have until dinner tonight to decide who will be speaking in what roles. Now, let the preparation begin. We've given each team a room to work in. Teams, now please head to your room. I can't wait.
The teams separate to develop their strategy and arguments.
Well, no, the very first thing we say is it is wrong for the state to discriminate on the basis of race.
I'm typing it down, so you don't have to if you want.
No, but this is for my speech.
Each team will get some advice on how to approach their position from different angles.
Hi guys, my name is Andrew Nelson. I'm a professor here at Loyola. If you think about it, what you're going to be doing is basically taking what I would say as a PR professional, a very unpopular stand. What I would tell you to do, I think, first of all, is to come up with a way that you're going to convince people that ethnic profiling is basically a social good. How have you guys done that? What have you thought about?
The best way to explain the case for ethnic profiling is to, I think, highlight the circumstances under which it becomes necessary.
So you want to scare them?
Yeah.
Just remind them of what happened 10 years ago.
Okay.
You know, the fact that if you don't want it to happen again, you got to take certain measures.
Maybe it's not so much that, you know, you're making people afraid, you want to make them feel more secure.
My name is Mark Pepsel. I was a television reporter for nearly 5 years.
What are some ways in which, like, you think, like, ethnic profiling frequently appears in the media?
I think the tendency is to blame it on the quote-unquote other and to search for an other. And
It doesn't please me to see some other so-called Muslims going and bombing places. It doesn't please me at all either. Like, I don't like them to look like me. I don't want to be sharing anything in common with those guys.
How do you fight against, that's something for you to, I guess, consider when you build your debate, encouraging media to fight against lumping people into groups.
I'm Dr. Vincenzo Sainato. I'm a professor of criminal justice here at the university. So you guys are here to debate, to argue as a proponent for racial profiling, right? How many of you would be willing to make that argument that racial profiling is something you would argue for? Anyone? You? No? Do you want to be on the other side arguing that this is nonsense, this is outrageous, right?
We're all pretty used to arguing the other side.
To argue for this in a way is it's morally distasteful, I'm assuming. I agree with you. I also agree that anybody who, I don't think you're going to win this debate if you stick with that argument.
So, when you say, throw me something, mister,
Throw me something, mister.
you get some beads, okay?
Work done for the day, the debaters enjoy some New Orleans culture. And of course, some New Orleans food.
Hi guys, my name is Ben. Welcome to Joey K's. I'll be serving you tonight.
No shortage of choices and maybe some new dishes to consider.
What's in the Creole jambalaya?
Creole jambalaya is kind of like a dirty.
Food arrives and they dig in. But there's still some business to finish.
Team 1, you've had all day to make your decision. What have you decided?
We've decided that I'm speaking first, Patrick is speaking second, Hande is speaking third, and Angela is the fourth speaker.
And Team 2?
Well, we've decided that Carlos is going to speak first, I'm going to speak second, Crystal is going to speak third, and Pierre is going to speak last.
Now let the preparation continue.
The morning starts with a stroll through the historic New Orleans French Quarter.
I like about New Orleans the culture, like the mixture between France, Spain, United States culture. That's really good.
I've never been down south, but I sort of got this, image of my head. In my head of everything, in full bloom, and I haven't, seen anyone in, big wide-brimmed hats yet. But I've got my fingers crossed, and it's just a different part of the country, and it's really beautiful.
It's awesome. Everyone is just so nice. And it's hilarious to walk around in what actually just looks like a movie set, kind of made for my arrival. It's fantastic. The music is great here. The food is cool. The bar culture is really good. I really enjoy the bars here, but no, it's fantastic so far.
I get a lot of sympathy from people. People try and speak some French to me, which I find very enjoyable. The accent is a lot more comprehensible than I thought.
The architecture is unlike anything that I've seen before. There are so many interesting juxtapositions of new and old. It's a really vibrant city. Even the color indicates the richness, even how buildings are painted and designed, how exciting the city is. You feel a lot of energy when you walk down the streets in New Orleans.
But with the debate just a day away, it's soon back to work.
I'm Ryan McBride. I work next door at Tulane University where I run a debate program. Where are you right now? How are things going?
We decided that in the first speech we're going to firstly talk about the moral issues because we feel it's important.
If you think that they won't be able to argue it on moral grounds, then they'll have to argue it on the practical side of it. What do you anticipate will be their strongest argument on that?
Maybe we are violating a couple of individuals' rights, but on the other hand, what we gain is we're protecting the whole society.
Just in general, how's your preparation going?
Just now working on definitions and a model, a sort of plan, and we're going to move into building arguments.
What do you see as your task for the next few hours?
Compartmentalizing a lot of the arguments so that they're succinct but pithy at the same time.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of ideas floating around, but they're a bit amorphous, I'd say.
So, profiling. What did we agree on there?
We're talking about extending the current profiling systems that most airport security use.
So I kind of feel like Angela, because saying that, oh, well, there might be a few Caucasians, but then the majority are Muslims, so ethnic profiling will be both useful and just means of combating terrorism.
Let's say 5 out of 6 terrorists that are a threat to U.S. security are Arab, right? If that were to be the case. They would argue, well, if we're able to use ethnic profiling to identify those 5, at least we've stopped 5 out of 6 terrorists.
The assumption that the only way to catch a terrorist is if you ethnically profile every single person is absurd, if you ask me. There are other ways to identify a terrorist besides his race, so I think. And we can even deny that. We could say, okay, you caught 5 terrorists, and when you implement it, you'll have 10 more because of all the social pressure and all the social stigma. We just have to amplify the consequences.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
You'll have to do that in the first speech really well.
On the moralities, first of all, the government has a moral duty to the rest of its citizens to make sure that planes don't blow up. So the costs of that are enormous. It devastates trade and commerce. The downside risk is huge because it's a kind of cataclysmic event that really affects society. And does more than just a shooting at a workplace, which from what I understand happens a lot here. And there's something about that that's peculiar to that particular event that means that the government has a special responsibility to do everything it can to protect against it. And then I would say airports are a finite resource environment and have a very limited period of time to do all the checking they can. And I would point to the fact that every person who's tried to blow up a plane with, explosives in their undies or in their shoe, or similarly located, has looked what Fox News would describe as a Muslim terrorist. So either of African descent or Asian descent. And that's, helpful if you're arguing that they're the people who are like slightly bigger risk categories. There's obviously like really excellent arguments against all that, but that's what I'd say on there. So
we're talking, let's narrow it to air transport.
Right.
But say that in principle, if there was a circumstance under which we would need to use this in a similar case, we're okay with using ethnic profiling in that case too. But we'll use this as a special case where it's readily identified.
In the train transportation. In Spain, they have terrorist attacks in the train transportation, so we can apply that.
Yeah, you can say, that if in Spain we found that ethnic profiling would be useful, if the profile included ethnicity. So if the profile includes it, if it's transportation, if it's rail versus air, it's all good.
I mean, like, it makes more sense to use rail in Europe.
Air transport, US.
That's part of the model?
No, this is part of the definitions.
The definitions?
Should the speech start off by explaining what ethnic, what is it, ethnical?
Ethnic profiling?
Ethnic profiling. I don't know, because starting off with those definitions before, stressing the fact that we're going to be talking about terrorism, I think.
Well, he should have a pithy introduction, right?
Like,
he should have like a little, 30-second thing where he says, something like a hook, right? Something to catch the attention, and then we can get into the more cut and dry stuff for a minute or so, doing the definitions. But at the beginning, usually, I don't know, with any speech that I give, I like to have a little hook at the beginning. When we sort of sit down and try and go over specifically what we're going to say in the speeches, we'll try and find a very succinct way of saying all this.
Yeah, and like we'll work on timing, Carlos.
Yeah.
So don't worry. Okay.
Do you have today, we have time for practice it?
We can make the time.
Yeah.
And we'll figure out the time for you to be able to practice this speech in particular, because I know that you want to get some of the English things under your belt.
Good.
I'm just here to check on you. So how's it going? Do you guys feel ready?
Yep.
So what are you guys planning on arguing? I won't tell the other team.
That it's a really terrible idea for any number of reasons. One, because it's wrong. And two, because it will never work. And three, because it'll make the problem worse.
Okay, like why? I think the expectation is that there'll be like some like statistical evidence, like not overwhelming amounts, but like if you have a claim that has a logical warrant, it might be useful to also include a statistical one. Hey guys, so I just wanted to check on how you're doing.
We're doing pretty well.
Yeah. Do you guys have your arguing? Like, do you have your like case laid out yet?
Well, we haven't firmed up all of our arguments yet, but we have all of our sort of ideas, and we're just trying to parcel them out and figure out where they go.
Do you want to like tell me about some of them? I won't like tell the other team or anything.
Well, we want to start off, we were originally going to start off talking about the efficiency of the tool of racial profiling, but we figured it would be better to start with something a little bit more evocative, because it's a little bit cut and dry to start with the technical aspect of how it works and why it'll be effective.
But we figured phrasing it in terms of like having limited resources, because like I think it's important with the efficiency argument to like emphasize that it's not just like, oh, we like are willing to like violate rights in order to be efficient. It's that because we don't have enough resources, we need to be efficient in this manner.
Thing, right? We can't stop everyone, and we don't have enough money to do it anyhow.
Yeah.
It's that we have to target it the right way.
Are you gonna like practice your first speech or?
Yeah, I will practice it.
Okay. And do you guys know how you're splitting up the arguments?
To be determined, I think.
Okay.
Just a few hours remain for the teams to finalize their arguments. Soon they'll do what they've traveled thousands of miles to do, come face to face for debate.
They need to sort of point out what they want to do with ethnic profiling. Like, is it just at airports? Is it inner city checkouts? And which ethnicities they want to target or anything like that?
I think it's in our advantage to look at all kinds.
Yeah, because it's in our advantage, but then
we don't have to.
I think
this is not about debate whether or not terrorism is sometimes justified. This is just about a debate.
Yeah, but if you're gonna give them examples of terrorists who are not coming from similar organizations as Islamic terrorists that they're gonna be usually using, I would assume they would use Islamic terrorists, because if we're gonna talk about ethical profiling,
we're not gonna have the same examples as them because we're on the other side.
I know, but still.
I don't understand the issue. Like, why is that important?
Do you think it's relevant if we use it?
I think it's just useful if they say, well, like statistically this or statistically that, and we can say, well, you can't just look at statistics because that's just not how terrorism works.
If we could find some points of information that would bring things back, like if they have a particularly good argument, we want to bring things back to our material, we might want to have something in the bag for that.
Right. Like, do you guys want clarifying POIs or like? Actually,
I don't know. I think there's a point of information that we should make maybe a few times, but put in different words. That it's just like, you know, what about the horror of the attacks?
I would also probably argue that by including ethnic profiling, you can create rules for how it's done, so that as opposed to it being discriminatory, it can be done with training. It can be done in accordance with, you know, sensible guidelines. That's good argument. So it's almost like it's the same argument that you use for legalizing drugs,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
You can. It's a harm reduction argument.
Right.
So we can talk about that.
Oh, I really like that.
But if you agree that such a policy is sheer madness, please join us today in opposing the motion.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, me too.
Okay, then I'll try to use that in my speech.
That's cool.
Okay, so I'll just go through a little bit about the arguments and what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
So the first one is that it's morally unjust, and basically I'll start with like where morality comes from. Then I go into this whole examples of the white terrorists that we have, like, and say that all of these people would fall through the system that the government is trying to set in place.
Thirdly, what are you going to bring up?
Yeah, I've just said that that basically that ethnic profiling is discrimination of the worst kind because it perpetuates the us against them. And so what do you think on that?
I liked it. I mean, it's good that you're going to start with the, which is like the main issue. It's being morally unjust, and it's not a just means of combating terrorism. Would it be too dramatic if I use myself as an example? I'm going
to use you as an example.
Actually, because I'm coming from Turkey, and if you were gonna like subject people to ethnical profiling, I would be within the scope of people who are ethnically profiled. I would be perfect example of it because I'm not white, they're white, and I get even like really dark during the summer, and then, you know, I'm Muslim, I'm coming from a Muslim country, but then if you look at me, I mean, I'm not a threat, and that's just like insulting.
I might use Carlos as well because it depends. Like if this is a U.S. policy, they'll probably profile
South American Hispanics
as well, right? I'm guessing.
Okay, why we came here around the world for discuss about terrorism? Why is it so important for our societies? It is not just because the life it takes. Yeah, the lives are important. 3,000 people dead after September 11. Yeah, I have to find some examples there. But it is important not just for that. It is important because the terrorism is a type of crime that they used to create the fear. And I'm nervous about because I have the representation of all Colombia and all Latin America and the public speaking. That puts a little nervousness. We used to debate in Spanish. I think this is the second time we debate in English.
I think you should probably construct like a really nice conclusion.
Yeah,
just,
I have it. But
yeah, that's it.
It's something like that. But
you can take your time when you go through.
Just like talk slower.
I really talk fast even in Spanish and English.
In English, it might help you
keep up with yourself, because I think
Yeah.
almost your head is getting ahead of your words sometimes.
Yeah.
It was understandable.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just make sure that, you know, if you're having trouble searching for a word, just take a dramatic pause.
Yeah.
You will have an easier time of it then, I think. It's good. It's good. It's going to be good.
A few nervous moments left to prepare. Then it's time to take the stage for a quick run-through before the actual arguments begin.
I'm feeling pretty stressed, but also confident. I think it's going to be a very interesting debate.
I think we're pretty ready. We've got a bunch of, evidence and arguments, and, I think we're going to do pretty well.
We're quite prepared for this debate, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think we're ready to go. We were a little bit worried at first, but we've done a lot of work now, and I think we're ready.
So yeah, I'm ready to go do this. It's gonna be fun.
I'm pumped, and I think we're gonna win. I think we have a good chance, we have a good team, so let's do this.
So now to introduce debating across borders. The motion in today's debate is going to be ethnic profiling is a just means of combating terrorism. Arguing in favor of the motion is Team 2, consisting of Carlos Felipe Parra Rojas from Colombia.
The main in the debate is not winning. Winning is just like invention that we create for the motivation of the people. But the important thing is to debate.
Sam Green from Canada. Crystal Lee from the USA. And lastly, Pierre Garcia from France. Arguing against the motion is Team 1, consisting of Jean Jeplon from Slovenia, Patrick Caldwell from Australia, Hande Ozturk from Turkey.
It is very important to win. I'd say it's one of the most important things. Especially if you're doing debate, it's all about winning.
And lastly, Angela Gunn from the USA. Each team will give 3 7-minute speeches, followed by a final 5-minute speech. Throughout these speeches, debaters are going to be asking points of information of the other team. And now, our judges in today's debate round are Daryl Phillips, attorney at the Cochran firm in New Orleans, Tim Lentz, Chief Deputy of St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office, and Steve Beatty, managing editor at The Lens, a nonprofit newsroom investigating New Orleans and the Gulf Coast. The first speaker will be Carlos, arguing for the proposition.
So, we're talking about the ethnicity and the profiling of the ethnicity. Ethnicity is related to the terrorist crimes, and we're going to show how the profile of the terrorists could be related to that topic. So we have a problem here: the safety. The safety. And we have a cause to that problem. The safety is being affected by the terrorists, and we have to propose a model that it is a real solution to that problem. The model is the ethnic profile. We are proposing a model. First, it is a safe model that it is rule. What means that it is rule? That it is based on real information that the intelligence authorities give to the border authorities. And second, we are giving a safe model that is based on real information that we get from every person. For example, by interviews, by information in the checkpoint. And we have a real effective model. 80% of the crimes after the September 11 were committed by Islamic extremists. So that means that it is predictable who will be the perpetrator of a terrorist attack. And we're basing that we have limited resources.
What we want to show you on today's opposition is that ethnic profiling is not the way to go. What we're going to prove today is that ethnic profiling is simply wrong and is not morally just. Secondly, we're going to prove that it simply just doesn't work. And thirdly, we're going to prove that it only perpetuates the problem of status quo. And that brings me straight to my first argument, which simply says that ethnical profiling is morally unjust. We are more than the color of our skin. We are more than our religion. We are more than our ethnicity. All of those things don't make you a terrorist. I, as a white Caucasian male from Europe, am just as likely to perform a terrorist act that Hande, who is Muslim and is from Turkey. We believe that you don't become a terrorist just because you're born in Pakistan or just because you're born in Afghanistan. What we believe, no thank you, on side opposition is that Anders Breivik, who killed 93 people in Norway, a white Caucasian male, is just as likely to have done that than someone from Iran. We believe that Ted Kaczynski, who killed so many people as a white Caucasian male, is just as likely to do all the things that terrorists do. Yes.
Wouldn't it be reasonable, after the killing of Osama bin Laden, for airport security to assume that the most likely people to attack America would be Islamic extremists from Al-Qaeda?
No, that's simply racist, to be honest. We feel on side opposition that it's morally unjust to claim that just because we killed Osama bin Laden, that suddenly all the Arabic world, all Islam, all Muslim will suddenly want to attack America. We feel it's just as likely that someone who is Caucasian, someone who is white, would be willing to do that, as in the case of Timothy McVeigh and all the others that came before him and will definitely come after him. I believe that I am just as suspicious as Hande to performing a terrorist act. I believe that I am just as suspicious to performing a terrorist act than Carlos. Secondly, we say that ethnic profiling doesn't work. What terrorists will do is they'll just adapt. Ethnic profiling doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen, because it simply goes about it the wrong way. Only by treating everyone as an equal threat can we be sure that we're doing the best job to not only protect the United States of America, but to protect every country in the world. So at the end of the day, on side opposition, we believe that equality is important. We believe that you are not where you are born. You are not the color of your skin, and you are not your ethnicity as such. And because of all these reasons, we proudly oppose. Thank you.
The fact of the matter is we profile all the time. We profile for people's age. We profile whether or not someone's bought their ticket 3 days in advance of their flight with cash. We profile based on a variety of factors to figure out which people are more likely to be a threat. The fact of the matter is that we have limited resources and we can't stop everyone. So if we can show you that it's necessary to find circumstances under which we can show that there is a greater likelihood that someone will perform a terrorist action, we think we're justified in winnowing down our search to get that sample. The facts indicate, no thank you, that the majority of the cases that law enforcement manages to catch are by a very specific profile in the United States of America. They tend to be, although not always, a very specific group of people, and if we can target them, not all of the time, but most of the time being able to determine who is the greatest threat, then we've done a good job in making the country more secure. If we use ethnic profile explicitly, as has been done in Israel very effectively, then we can create rules and training so that officers need not be discriminatory. They simply need to match the profile that they've been given at a certain time. And that profile can be adjusted to fit the facts. No, thank you. Furthermore, I would tell you that it's quite possible that, like the agent that checked Mohammed Atta in, the perception that it is discriminatory to use ethnic profiling creates a chilling effect on the capacity of airport security guards to do their jobs well. Because if a security guard believes that when he takes a young Muslim man out of a line and searches him because of a combination of suspicious behavior, a combination of contextual factors, if he believes, that security guard believes, that he is going to be perceived as having taken an action that is racist and discriminatory, then he might feel uncomfortable in taking the action that's necessary to protect the security of the airport. We would tell you that an explicit system of ethnic profiling does a much better job of creating the circumstances where it can be done fairly, when it can be done to the best of advantage of security. But the fact is that if we don't search the people that we suspect to be the most likely to cause problems, then we have a couple of options. Either we can search everyone at random and be much less likely to catch the perpetrators, or we simply allow these types of threats to go unchecked. So we would say that in a world of limited resources, of limited time, of limited money, that we need to be able to find a profile that fits, that works. So I've told you today that it doesn't sound appropriate to ethnically profile, but it's appropriate because it's necessary. It's appropriate because it's a measure that we need to take to protect civilian lives. Because at the end of the day, terrorism is too dangerous a threat for us to stand idly by and say that our abstract principles are more important than our security.
They're not abstract principles. They're ideas like due process, like protection from an unequal system of justice, and justice unequally administrated. The reason that we think they're important is because we think everyone is equal and should be equal before the law. The reason we codify those into things like constitutions is because we want to protect our worst instincts, protect ourselves from our worst instincts, make sure that our better selves prevail in times when we act out of fear. I want to deal with two things that we've heard from the affirmative in this debate. First, what are the assumptions that they've given us? And second, this limited resource environment material we just heard from Sam. On the assumptions, the first one was great. It was there's a lot of terrorism, so we have to do something about it, and that something is ethnic profiling. Obviously, we wouldn't argue that terrorism is fine and that we shouldn't do something about it. But you can't just stand up and say X is a problem, therefore any solution to X must be the solution that we should go with. Two, this idea that all terrorists are motivated the same way, that it's incredibly likely that if someone wants to get on a plane and do something nasty to that plane, they're probably a Muslim, they're probably from Pakistan. Untrue. The fact of the matter is that 95% of terrorist attacks since September 11, 2001 have not been perpetrated by Muslims. Muslims are not the only threat, they're not the only terrorists, and to assume so is dangerous. Terrorists aren't stupid. Just how long do you think it would be before an organisation that conspired to kill almost 3,000 Americans in 2001 would say, you know what we should do? Maybe we should use one of the many white people who subscribe to these same beliefs. We'll send through a couple of people who don't look white. They might get pulled over by airport security. But in the meantime, if we accept that it's a limited resource environment, that necessarily means there will be holes, and that attention is animated by virtue of how people look, that necessarily means that logically, the people who get pulled over are not the people who look like Anders Breivik, they're not the people who look like David Hicks, an Australian citizen who just got released from Guantanamo Bay because they found this white guy from outback New South Wales on the battlefield fighting against the Taliban like many similar people. To turn to what I'm going to offer you in this debate. The long-term effects of discriminating against individuals and then those individuals aggregated or a group are horrific for society. They do three things. First, they disenfranchise the individual. So the individual feels violated. It's a violation of their personhood and how they look when they're singled out by police, and that police officer tells them, you're more likely to blow up this plane of your fellow citizens because of how you look, because of the faith that you might profess, and I know that just from looking at you. Second of all, it disempowers the moderates in that community. So you're less likely to hear from moderate Muslims, and it turns out we really need those people. Of the terrorist attacks since 2001 that have been plotted by homegrown Muslim potential terrorists in the United States, fully 40% of them were thwarted by the FBI based on tips from other Muslims who went to their local mosque and said, I don't like what that guy's planning, we need to stop that. You lose the capacity for moderates to change the debate. And the last thing that happens is you polarize the debate. Because the only people selling a message in the Muslim world are those people sending a message that says, we are victims. You need to take up a sword and defend against this onslaught against Islam. Violence is the only answer. You legitimate that message when you have, for instance, hearings hosted by a New York congressman on why Islam is the most evil thing facing the United States, despite the fact that in all terrorist attacks since 2001, 33 people have died, rather than murder, for instance, which is a garden variety thing, claimed 150,000 people. It's time to reprioritise the debate. It's time to make sure that the kind of environment we have for social discourse is one in which sensible people can be heard. And by discriminating against people based on something that we would say is a fundamental right of theirs to practice freely and not be singled out in the line, we not only don't solve the problem, we make sure that we never will.
Now, let's come to an issue of practicality. Because we concede on side proposition that we're not going to catch them all, but you're going to be damn sure on side proposition that we're going to do everything it is in our power to make sure that terrorists get through as little as possible. Now, we heard a lot on side opposition that this type of ethnic profiling is random, and it doesn't actually It's not actually based on any type of evidence. But we told you already quite clearly on our model, on side proposition, that it's going to be a rule-based system. There's going to be education and training, and it's based on intelligence reports for certain regions. And so we think that this type of system is the type of system that would be based on evidence and rather than conjecture.
Point of information?
Sure.
Are you aware that the definition of ethnic profiling is using someone's race or ethnicity as opposed to suspicious behavior or information?
Yeah, that's fine, but we're not saying that it can't be used in tandem. I'm going to be talking about the practicality issues a little bit more. According to the Investigative Project on Terrorism, 80% or more of the terrorist attacks since 9/11 have been driven by a radical Islamist agenda. We're not saying that it's always going to be Arab, ladies and gentlemen, but we do think that there's a certain type of agenda, there's a certain type of thinking, and John actually told us in his first speech that they subscribe to the same type of beliefs. That's a profile, ladies and gentlemen. We have no illusions about the problem, ladies and gentlemen, and we have no illusions about the solution. We think it's morally acceptable and effective, and it's a just means for combating terrorism.
We're gonna just assume someone is potential terrorist because that person was born in Indonesia, because that person was born in France, because that person was born in Turkey. No, ladies and gentlemen, terrorist and being terrorist is not in our genes. It's not in our gene pools. No, it's not like having blue eyes, which is coded to your DNA. No, ladies and gentlemen, just because you're born in a country, just because you believe in a religion, doesn't make you a terrorist. I am Turkish. I was born in Turkey, I'm Muslim, and I'm practitioner. That doesn't make it enough to believe that I am suspicious, more suspicious than any other human being here. That doesn't make me a suspicious. That doesn't make me want to blow up World Trade Center. When you do profiling and when you do ethnical profiling, you assume that it's going to work. But then you also assume that the threat is always coming from others, which is so easy to profile because they definitely have different hair color, they have different skin color, they're different, so it's easy to target on them. But they could use, as we just showed, they could use people who just look like us. You say that Norwegian example was an extraordinary example and exceptional case, whereas we believe that it can happen even more often in the future if you're going to implement ethnical profiling, because terrorists would know then they should just look like us, which wouldn't be that hard.
Basically, there are three major arguments that are relevant in this debate. First, there's the issue of morality. Essentially, the proposition is telling you that ethnic profiling is a necessary evil, that we have an exchange of rights in a time of terror. But we're saying, ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to remind you of the horrors that racial assumptions have inflicted upon the United States in its time of existence. Racially profiling or allowing racial assumptions perpetuates ideas of an us and them ideology where we say they're untrustworthy because they're different from us. So basically what we're saying is that in the United States we have this value of equality. We want to judge all people on their character as opposed to what they look like. And when you allow for racial profiling, you go against everything that we hold as dear in our society. So remember that you can't vote for them simply because they're not respecting American values. But second of all, remember what my teammates told you about the effectiveness of racial profiling. It's not going to be effective, one, because it's very easily avoided. There are white terrorists who work with al-Qaeda. Colleen LaRose, who called herself Jihad Jane, is a perfect example of this. And the more and more we ethnically profile, the more and more al-Qaeda will simply just use people of other ethnicities. Third, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why you don't want to look to ethnic profiling, because even if you say, fine, it's a necessary evil, even if you agree with them on that point. And even if you think that it's going to work in finding terrorists, well, it's still not going to be effective because, fine, you found 2 terrorists, but you're going to form 10 more because you're destroying the community that you have within the United States. When you constantly racially profile people, you alienate them. We see this within our civilian society where you have young black men who are alienated from society because they've been frisked 20 or 30 times by police officers who automatically suspect them of crimes simply on the basis of their race. Remember what my teammates told you is that when you racially profile someone, they're not going to feel, when they don't feel like they're part of the community, they might see suspicious behavior, but they won't report it to the authorities because they don't trust the authorities. Why don't they trust the authorities? Because the authorities don't trust them. I don't trust people who don't trust me, and I don't see why anyone else would act any different. Essentially what this debate comes down to is, are you willing to implement an immoral policy which is most likely not going to work for all of the reasons that we've already given you. And then, after you've violated your values and used this ineffective policy, you created an angry and alienated community within your country. If you think that's a good idea, you should vote for the proposition. But if you see that this is sheer madness, I ask you to join us today in opposing this motion.
There is one element that you don't seem to have taken into account in your conception of the subject. The world is not a safe place. America is not safe. America has to protect itself, and that changes everything. Your claims don't weigh much when balanced by the threat of terrorism. Let us remember that the situation as it is for America is an all-out war against terrorism, never seen in the past. It is a war against an enemy that is difficult to identify. It is one guy every once in a while that kills thousands. That man has to be found and stopped. And profiling, including ethnic profiling, helps the authorities manage to do that. We do arrest terrorists using profiling. This country finds itself caught up in an incomprehensible war against enemies that have no respect for civilians, no idea of what the morality of warfare is. Let me stress that point. It is an all-out war. If another attack took place, another 9/11, killing thousands, with Al-Qaeda responsible again, and if the perpetrators could have been stopped using ethnic profiling, if they had been checked and searched and prevented, because the ethnic factor in the database would have cranked their note just a tiny notch and put them in the category of risky people, this country would be in shock, unable to understand why we didn't use ethnic profiling in the first place. Because let's face the fact, and be realistic for a second, all the hijackers of 9/11 were of the same ethnicity. The overwhelming majority of Al-Qaeda members are of the same ethnicity. And since we're looking for common traits among terrorists to identify them, ethnicity should be a profiling factor. Having the feeling that you were picked up to be searched because of your ethnicity sure is an unpleasant and probably humiliating experience. But what are the few hours you're going to spend being interrogated compared with the importance of the issue? Anyone that likes this country should understand that it can happen, that they are to comply with those rules because national security is simply more important than you going through checkpoints in 5 minutes to catch your connecting flight to New Orleans and party Louisiana style. What we're saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that sometimes, in circumstances as dreadful and impossible to deal with as terrorism, measures simply must be taken however unpleasant they are. Ethnic profiling is an efficient way to combat terrorism. It is also a just way to combat terrorism. Please support the motion.
So we just heard a really interesting debate. So now we're going to go to the judges. We're going to leave the judges 10 minutes to deliberate, then call people back. So take your time.
The judges step away to deliberate, and the debaters wait.
So it was definitely a tough decision, but the judges have finally made up their minds, so I'd like to welcome them to the stage and thank them for coming here.
I looked at this from the two definitions and points of analysis that were presented to us effectively by both sides. Is it a moral issue? Certainly when the proponents suggested flat out use the phrase that Americans should give up rights, that's something that makes most people, I think, very uncomfortable. And I thought that the opposition answered fairly well, saying that due process is not an abstract thought. The weight of whether it's morally correct, though, has to be, in my opinion, balanced against the effectiveness. I have to give some weight, some greater weight to the effectiveness of this, of racial profiling. Very clearly, the opposition said terrorists are not stupid and will adjust rapidly. And I think the proponents clearly stated that your racial profile is one thing that you can adjust and you can't change. We'll wrap up with my decision. My vote is with the proponents.
The way I analyzed the argument was that I thought there were really 3 key points that were made by both sides. The first point that I think was what I call the moral argument, or the necessary evil argument, in that we're living in very tough times. There's a lot of difficulty in addressing this particular problem. And I thought that the proponents did a very good and persuasive job of convincing me that profiling could be a necessary evil. The second point was, as I describe it, the effectiveness of it. Will it work? What will be the end result? And I think Team 1, or the opposition, did a very, very persuasive job, at least in my opinion, on the ineffectiveness of racial profiling in itself. The third point was the end result argument. What would happen? What would be the end result if we went to such a program? And I think I was most convinced by the argument that we would steer away the moderates in different cultures if we went to a racial profiling. And based on those 3 points, I found that the opposition to racial profiling was more persuasive, at least in my opinion, and I gave the vote or the nod to the opposition. Thank you.
Having picked up on some highlights of both of your speeches today, one of the things the force side mentioned was the fear. We always live in this constant fear, and how terrorism sometimes can be predictable. We profile people all the time was one of your topics, and you're absolutely correct. And of course, the world is not a safe place. And the against side brought up topics such as equality and morally unjust, and terrorism is not in our genes, and racial profiling hurts that individual, and all that is true. But after much consideration, the team that I believe gave the most compelling argument, and I cast my vote for the opposition. Congratulations.
So congratulations to both teams for what was definitely a fantastic debate. Now we'd like to present the opposition with awards.
They were well versed, from my understanding, between the time that they got the project and the time they had to gel as a team. I thought that was a phenomenal job to be done.
Well, certainly the ability to synthesize that much information that quickly is just impressive. And to come up with a cogent teamwork, it's very good.
This is the future of our world sitting right here at this table, and I feel so much better knowing that our future is in good hands.
Again, I'd just like to thank both teams for debating, thank everyone for coming, and thank Loyola University for having us. It was great having you all.
While one team went home with trophies, all of the debaters came away with a winning experience, new friendships, and a greater appreciation of how cultural differences can be bridged through respectful dialogue, a valuable lesson learned while debating across borders.
I think if everyone in the States and everyone in every country in the world was required from time to time, like we were in this debate, to take an issue that we don't necessarily agree with and stand up in front of an audience and give an argument in favor of something that they don't necessarily personally believe in, then that exercise might teach them to put themselves out of their own skin once in a while, to put themselves in someone else's shoes and realize that there is another side of things.
I think maybe the thing is there's another side. Agree with it or not, but at least hear it. Hopefully we'll get more of that.
And hopefully more debate and less violence, more talking and less war, because that at the end is what we're doing and what we're trying to promote.